Mr. Chair, colleagues, my name is Dallas Hurd, State Representative from House District 2, here in support of House Bill 3337 and also supporting the Dash 1 amendments. This has been a long time coming for me. I've been thinking about this moment for almost a decade, truthfully. A little background on who I am and how it relates to this. I graduated high school in 2004 and wasn't interested in going to college. I had a good background in business from my father and my parents in general and some other folks that I'm related to, just watching them run small businesses. And so I felt like I had what it took to go get a loan from the bank and take my try. I started out as a sod farmer, strictly just growing the grass, harvesting it, and delivering it to folks. I wasn't interested in laying the sod or doing anything like that because I was a one-man shop, taking care of my own equipment, mowing, vacuuming the grass, fertilizer, spraying it. I mean, it's about a 15-hour-a-day job when you're doing it on your own. So, stepping forward a few more years, I'm $100,000 in debt. I have a small little 1992 Ford pickup. I'm living in my grandma's basement, rent-free, thank goodness. Not exactly a hard place to live, actually, with grandma. But things were just not going very well for me. And then the economy starts to collapse. And I was not going to default on my loan. So when I started having customers continue to ask me to lay sod, I'm like, sure. You're going to pay me to lay sod? Absolutely. Then I get this nice little letter in the mail for a $2,000 fine from the state of Oregon. It says you've been accused of landscaping without a license. I honestly had no idea there was even such a thing at the time. So, thank goodness, the fine was reduced to $200 since it was my first offense. But when I talked to the enforcement officer, who is no longer with the agency, and by the way, I'm going to say the agency is some great people. I really like the folks at the LCB. They treat people good. Whether you're licensed or not licensed, they're good folks. They're just doing their job. But I was not a big fan of this former individual who I talked to. When I asked him, what is this fine? He said it's for working without the license. And I said, well, I'm a citizen of Oregon. Don't I have the right to work? Don't I have the right to earn an income for myself? To pay my debts? Customers called me. They wanted me to lay the sod. They didn't want this other person to lay the sod. They wanted me to do it. He said, no, you don't have the right. And I'll never forget this, and I'll never let anybody forget this. He said, no, you don't have the right. It's a privilege to work in the state of Oregon, and you got to go through us. Folks, I do not agree with that statement. It's a privilege to work for you, the customer. It's my right to work in Oregon. And it's the right of a lot of other folks who are going to be benefited by this legislation. And I want to remind all of us, there's a lot of folks that are represented under this bill that don't have faces to it, names to it. You might never know who they are, but they don't have the finances to fund a big lobby effort to advocate on their behalf. You and I alone are charged with that task. We are the representatives of the people of Oregon, not special interests. This is in the people of Oregon's best interest. I finally obtained my license after spending a lot of money, a lot of time, and if it wasn't for the fact that I came from a gene pool of nearly insane individuals who just don't know how to quit, the senator can relate. That's the only way I got up that slippery, ladderless wall, was to just keep banging away week after week, taking that test over and over until I finally passed the dang thing. Most people don't have that kind of confidence, that kind of drive, nor should they have to. I'm the only individual in Douglas County, 105,000 people in Douglas County, and I'm the only one under the age of 45, I believe, at this point, that operates a licensed, legit landscape construction company. There's something wrong with this system. Now, There's a lot of folks up in the Salem, Portland, Eugene areas that I'm sure are my age, maybe even younger, that have obtained that license. But I come from a community of hardworking, good, honest people who don't always finish high school, who don't always have parents that can teach them the principles and the work ethic that you need right at the beginning to overcome this barrier of entry. There's a lot of folks that just don't have a lot of options. So in 2015, my first session in my first term of office, we successfully passed House Bill 3304. That was a good faith effort on my part to try to put the wheels in motion of keeping tests in place, but make it much easier for people to actually obtain the license. Let's do a real skills test. Before HB 3304, it was written, English only testing, 7 sections. Now we have a Spanish translation because of that bill. Now we have a Spanish translator for the real skills test option, and we have a real skills test option. The problem is that last year when the test was finally implemented, 0 out of 15 applicants, 0, were able to obtain their license. Yes, some individuals passed some parts of the testing, but no one on their first try, and it was only a 1-day test, no one on their first try was able to obtain the license. 100% failure in that regard. $1,200 per individual who had to take that test. That's not accounting for traveling expenses. Income lost from not working that day. As I understand it, I think 3 other individuals took the opportunity to go to the state of Washington to take a similar test, because it was adopted under that roof, if you will, of compliance. Only one of them was able to get pretty much to the end, but last I checked, and the information that's available to me from the Landscape Contractors Board was that that individual still had a small written test to pass. So, to the best of my knowledge, that individual still may not have completed the full testing and obtained a license. There's something wrong with tests where 100% of the applicants fail when we're talking about planting rhododendrons. We're not talking about building houses, folks. And there's a lot more to it. I do this for a living. This is my main source of income. Nearly 100%. It's not this job, I can tell you that, and we all know that. 7 of the applicants that took the test required a Spanish translator. And we'll move on from that. So let's get into consumer protection. A lot of folks would say that this bill undermines consumer protection. I say not so. When you think about it, what is the best thing a consumer can have at their disposal to protect their wallet and the quality of the project they seek? Options. Last time I checked, it's options. When there's only one place in town that has what you want and they know it, or there's only 2 or 3 of them and they know it, you're going to pay a lot for it, and you may not always get the best quality. So I like to have options. Furthermore, we live in the internet digital age. You have the Better Business Bureau, Angie's List, Google ratings, Craigslist, rants and raves, if you know what I'm talking about. There you go. Facebook, and many other forms of social media that can alert customers that, hey, you don't want to do business with this person. And I'd like to remind folks of the fact that just because you passed a test does not mean you're a person of character. Retirees, a lot of the time, can't afford good quality landscape construction for 2 reasons. We're just too busy because there's not enough of us to service our area. So I turn down work all the time. If the budget for the most part is under $5,000, I can't, for the betterment of my employees and my own family's income, I can't say yes to those jobs because it's the same amount of cost for a job when it comes to the paperwork of the bidding process, moving equipment in, moving it out. It's pretty much all about the same whether the job was $2,000 or $20,000. So I can't just take on every little job, even though I want to. So those folks need somebody that's actually going to be able to do the work for them, who's hungry for the work, who's going to give them the best price possible so that they can achieve their dreams as a retired couple that maybe doesn't have a lot of disposable income. They deserve an option too. I shouldn't be the only option. New licensure means people are going to start paying their taxes. We've got a lot of folks that are going to come in from out of the shadows if this legislation is successful, if you put this bill through. There's a lot of folks doing a lot of unlicensed landscape construction that will no longer do unlicensed. They'll say, you know what, I'm going to pay my $400 roughly a year. I'm going to provide my liability insurance, my bond, a functioning proper payroll to protect my employees, and everybody else is protected from that. And the taxpayers of Oregon will actually have some extra help instead of all the under the table cash back and forth business. People will actually fear doing that because if they get caught, they're going to probably lose their license. Furthermore, I think that you would see, I mean, it's just my opinion, that if this bill is implemented, I think unlicensed landscape construction is going to be much more frowned upon in the future than it is right now, because people will begin to understand that it's pretty easy to get your license now if you want to get a small start, get your feet wet. Why don't you have a license? That's what I'd ask somebody. Some of the concerns I want to cover that I've heard about in the building as this bill's been moving through the process. And I'm about to wrap up here. Low voltage lighting. So, I went to Lowe's today, and I bought a few of these products that I use all the time to display how simple and not intimidating or dangerous this stuff is. It takes longer, folks, to go buy this off the shelf than it does to install it.
You'll have to leave that here for the...
So this is a sprinkler timer. My guys install probably one of these a day. Okay? It takes a couple screws, you hang it. I think most of us know what this is. You plug it into a wall. Okay? Not very scary. When it comes to hardwiring a timer into a wall, to the best of my knowledge, as an all-phase licensed landscape contracting company, which I am, I do not have the legal right nor the desire to hardwire a timer into the wall. Only plug it in. You have to hire a licensed electrician to do that, which we have at times when the customer wants that. Moving on to low voltage lighting. This is the timer transformer for LED, or it doesn't have to be LED, but landscape lighting for your yard. Again, from Lowe's. Could have come from Home Depot, but they weren't close enough. I like them both, though. This is an LED light fixture. Again, you just buy it at the store. Okay. This is the final part of the low voltage lighting process. Again, I want to show that.
I'll be your fan.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. You plug that in. You don't hardwire anything in. This is the final part of it. You stick that through. This is DC wire. It's 2 strands. You can do it either side. It's very simple technology that way. You screw this down tight. You go plug your thing in and you're done. That's low voltage lighting. And it's legal for any citizen in Oregon to do that for themselves at home right now. Backflow protection devices. If you're not familiar with what those are, a backflow protection device is a state-mandated device for when you put in a cross connection with drinking water. If you're going to have exposed systems like a sprinkler system that could get bacteria and corrosion into it, you don't want to have that water pollute the drinking water. So you put a backflow device in between to stop any vacuum situation from causing that. I wanted to respect the agreement we had on that particular issue because I saw that as more of a possibility of something going wrong versus these first 2 I mentioned. And so you will still, after this legislation is passed, you would still have to take the test to be able to install backflow devices. This legislation does not change that. Continual education credits. I've heard some rumors that there's accusations that this bill would eliminate continual education. That is not true. Continual education will still stay in place, still be required, and I think it's a good thing, and I support its existence and continual implementation into our system of being landscapers. We put, after talking with some folks that were not real excited about this bill, they brought up some great ideas. We tried to implement them into the draft so we didn't have a bunch of amendments making the bill all messy. One of those was, well, why don't we put a bid limit for this new license? So I said, fine. We put an $8,000 bid limit. That means new licensees under this particular portion of the options, you would be able to do most everything that I've just mentioned except for install backflows, and you'd be able to do up to $8,000 worth of work per customer per year. I'm going to wrap things up here so we can get to some other folks. At the end of the day, folks, I've always strived to become the best at whatever I'm doing. In landscaping, I think I'm pretty decent at it. I know my guys that work for me are the best. But I have a really hard time looking myself in the mirror and saying I'm the best when I feel like a lot of people are being held out of the market and not being allowed to compete with me for whatever reason they're struggling with. And like 1940s baseball, you can't say you're the best if everybody's not getting to play. And so I'm hoping that we're going to make the right step in the right direction here to resolve this issue and move forward in Oregon and be a state that allows everybody to have a shot at the American and the Oregonian dream. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's continue with this panel and then have questions after. Senator Johnson.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Betsy Johnson. I proudly represent Senate District 16. In Representative Hurd's freshman year, I testified in support of one of his very important bills, House Bill 3304. I also carried the bill on the Senate floor. You might ask why a senior Democrat would want to help out a freshman Republican, and I think you've just seen part of the reason here. My advocacy wasn't related to the subject matter of the bill. Rather, my support was engendered by a number of external factors. One, the passion that you hear from the bill's author. The author of the bill, as you just heard, is a landscape professional, and instead of looking for reasons to exclude newcomers, Representative Hurd has authored legislation to invite more folks into his profession. Moreover, the target population he aimed to help in many cases were Latinos. Regrettably, House Bill 3304 has failed for many of the reasons that you heard Representative Hurd explain, and I believe House Bill 3337 proposes a fix. So let me explain why I hold this opinion. Representative Hurd has just explained why the Landscape Contractor Board test results show this dismal performance with multiple sections score at 100% failure rate. 7 candidates who took the landscape test in Spanish, the average score was 40%. 3 candidates requested additional time on the test because English was not their primary language. Average score 37%. Unacceptable failure rates disproportionately harm Latinos that want to get into the landscape construction business. It also closes the door on many other financially distressed communities. The test cost is prohibitive. It's $1,200. The test is too difficult or expensive to take over and over and over again, and so folks are forced to operate without a license, or they simply give up. This is unacceptable in a state that professes to value diversity. House Bill 3337, I think, will remove barriers to entry so that individual entrepreneurs can easily get licensed, own their own small businesses, immediately begin working on bids up to $8,000 per bid per client per year. This way they can build their clientele, they can save money to take the expensive licensure after they've worked in their chosen profession, and they can take tests which removes all bid limits once they have gotten the certification. As you heard from Representative Hurd, my opinion is that the industry is too exclusionary. Instead of trying to assist a new generation of landscape professionals, many seek to close the industry to those very entrepreneurs that are struggling to make ends meet and become the small businessmen that are and women that are the backbone of this state's economy. So I think market share competition suppression has got to stop. I think creating a real skills test and a Spanish language test option would help open up this industry and remove the barriers. Further work needs to be done, and the starting place is your passage of House Bill 3337. Thank you very much, and I'm going to, with the indulgence of the committee, excuse myself. I have a 4 o'clock. I'd be happy to answer any questions before I go.
Any questions for Senator Johnson before she goes? Okay. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Rep. Hernandez.
Chair Reardon, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Diego Hernandez, State Representative for House District 47, East Portland. So you all just heard a lot of detail around the bill and also a passionate speech from Representative Hurd. The reason why I'm here and supporting this bill, I can really relate to what this bill is trying to accomplish, because I grew up from a single mom who moved here from Mexico and tried to start her own business and found herself fighting these barriers that existed from her being able to start a small business. So when Representative Hurd started talking to me about that, not only did I remember how many failed attempts my mom had to try to start a business herself because of the licensure requirements and all these different red tapes that really do exist and prohibit particularly low-income folks from trying to be innovative, trying to start a new business. But also because I also remembered all of my uncles and family who tried to go into the field and probably still did go into the field of landscaping. And I'm not going to say whether they had a license or not, but you could probably conclude something yourself. And I think what this bill would do, it would allow for a lot of communities, particularly low-income communities and those communities that have language barriers, to have an opportunity to get a license in a way that's accessible to them, in a way where they could now pay payroll and contribute to taxes, and also in a way that, because most folks want to get a license, they want to do the right thing. What ends up happening is our systems and our barriers that exist just don't allow them to do that. So removing that red tape is really critical, particularly for those disenfranchised communities. So this bill really seeks to help communities that have language and financial barriers. The new licensure is designated, because I know y'all are interested in like CTE and getting people out into the world, for emerging entrepreneurs and business startups. So the -1 amendment also clarifies that home builders and construction contractors are not able to use this newly created licensure to boost the bid amounts. With that, I'll leave it at that. I hope you support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Reardon and members of the committee. My name is Janelle Bynum. I proudly represent House District 51 here in Oregon. I'm here in support of House Bill 3337 because it is a straightforward way to scale down barriers to entry to entrepreneurship in Oregon. In effect, it starts to tear down our embedded poll taxes. Often we don't realize how prohibitive certain tests can be, and a high fee going along with the tests can exacerbate that problem. An example in my own experience is when McDonald's implemented a national test called ServSafe, and it was for our food safety managers in the restaurants. And what we found was that many of the employees didn't have the educational background it took to pass the test. They didn't have the test-taking skills, and they didn't have the scientific knowledge. They understood how to perform food safety, and they did it every day with a lot of pride, but this test was a barrier for them. We often take for granted our ability to pass a test. We understand what a Scantron is, where you bubble in your name and bubble in the answers. Many of them, when I sat down to do the test-taking skills with them, they had never seen a form like that before. Not all, but some did. The other thing that I noticed in trying to help them work on preparing to pass the test after they'd failed a couple of times was how you eliminate answers. So normally in test taking you get 4 choices. So the way you can pass the test is you cross off the 2 that don't make sense, and then you pick from the 2 that are more likely. That's a test taking skill, and not everybody has that. So that was one of the things that we did in trying to make sure that people were able to move up the career ladder, and that we didn't exclude people who really wanted to work hard and move up their careers without putting in place barriers that were well-intentioned but ineffective. So I would contend these employees were hardworking Oregonians, ready to get to work, but prevented from doing so by these barriers. And this problem extends, as you've seen, to many industries. And for us, House Bill 3337 moves us towards removing this problem in landscaping. Again, I contend that some of our practices in the state with respect to licensing amount to poll taxes. It will help people who may not have a college degree or speak English as a first language work for themselves and be as entrepreneurial as other small businesses are, providing more opportunities for work and allowing more Oregonians to lift themselves up is a goal we all share, and I hope you'll join me in support of House Bill 3337. Thank you for hearing my testimony today. Preguntas?
Any questions for this panel?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, Rep. Clem?
While you're chatting, I'll just make a comment. First of all, thank you all for coming. And I just wanted to comment, when I first started my computer business, and I think probably to this day, there is no license. So I'm allowed to go into people's homes, look at all their data, fix their computer problems theoretically, clean their viruses, but not able to get out and mow the lawn. And thankfully there was no license, because I would have been afraid. I'm sure I could have figured it out eventually, but I didn't take computer science in college. I took political science, and I just needed a job. So I put a little Yellow Page ad in and prayed somebody would call before it got so expensive that I had to shut off the phone line to get out of the Yellow Page ad, because that was the only way out at the time. And I can tell you this too. What Representative Hernandez talked about, my mom, single mom, 2 kids, no one had been to college in my family before. Timber industry goes to hell in Coos Bay, and she got laid off from the school district and sold Tupperware so we could live. Luckily, Tupperware ladies didn't need a license either. And it was weird watching her trying to figure out how to be a business person, because she had never done this before. But I don't think she would have had the money to go get a license if you had to on how to sell Tupperware.
Question?
Thank you, Chair. I also want to acknowledge and commend the speakers today on this bill. I think that there's certainly a lot of folks out there who are looking to improve their lives, practice their own specialization and the skill sets that they have, and it does make me sad that we have a lot of barriers in our state that prohibit a lot of folks from being able to work for themselves in many industries, including this one. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that I really appreciate all of your perspectives today and all of your stories in respect to this bill.
Anything else? Okay, great. Thank you all.
Chair Reardon and distinguished committee members, my name is Alberto Moreno. I serve as chair for the Oregon Commission on Hispanic Affairs. We are here in support of House Bill 3337-1 because we want to see expanded opportunities for the 500,000 Latinos who live, pray, and work in Oregon. In 2015, I came and spoke in favor of House Bill 3304, which directed the landscape contractor boards to develop a real skills test and offer Spanish language testing options. I was hopeful. I repeat, I was hopeful that our emerging communities could finally have equitable access to their chosen profession as licensed landscape professionals. Unfortunately, I was disappointed to learn, as you have, that multiple sections of the test have a 100% failure rate. As you know, the Latino community is heavily involved in the landscape nursery and agricultural industries and collectively hold vast knowledge in areas that would assist in their passage of this landscape contracting board test. Before I proceed, I want to reflect on the fact that none of the witnesses before you here were able to find, identify, or bring a single Latino contractor to provide testimony in opposition of this bill. But despite obvious barriers with the method of testing candidates, House Bill 3337 does not remove testing requirements or harm the landscape profession by allowing entry of new candidates. Instead, this bill creates entry-level opportunities for members of our community to own their own businesses, to create economic opportunity for their families. I want to remind us that it is minorities and disadvantaged Oregonians who are most vulnerable to the expensive licensure requirements you heard about today. The planting and irrigation total cost for the practical skills test alone is $1,200. For many in my community who wish to enter their chosen profession of landscape contracting, the test is cost prohibitive, and many give up on their dreams of owning a licensed small business. In closing, I support this bill because our communities can no longer accept being excluded from their chosen profession because of language or financial barriers. These emerging entrepreneurs have so much to offer the profession, our state, the economy, and their neighborhoods and their families by providing a service they love in an industry and in a community they love to serve. Thank you this afternoon for your time and attention, and please support this bill by holding a work session to move this onto the House floor for full consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, my name is Ramon Ramirez. I'm president of the Oregon Farm Worker Union, PCUN. And Chair Reardon and members of the committee, I want to thank you for having me testify here today. On behalf of our 6,500 members of PCUN, I want to express our full support for House Bill 3337. PCUN is Oregon's farm worker union. We work to improve the living and working conditions of farm workers in the state of Oregon. Even though this bill does not cover farm workers, many of our members do work in landscaping when there's no work in farm labor. So I'm here because I think it's really important that we bring those folks that want to create their own business. I did a little survey before I came in. By the way, I was called by Representative Hurd to get my feedback on this bill, first of all, and then second of all, to support it. And so I took a little time before I decided to testify in favor of this bill because I wanted to go back to my community. I live in a community that is emerging economically. We have a lot of landscapers, and a lot of these folks are not unlicensed. And the survey I did was to get an idea of how many people, how many years experience do they have working as landscapers, right? So we're not, when the other gentlemen that were up here were talking about, you know, people fixing up lawns and, you know, your home and piercing your envelope of your house, you know, I didn't get that from the people that I interviewed. You know, I talked to around 9 or 10 people, about 10 people, and I asked them, like, how many years experience do you have? What kind of work that you do? And these people will have like a lot of years experience, right? And these people are starting to get to a point, the average was almost like 8 years experience in landscaping. So we're not talking about people driving in their pickup trucks and, you know, trying to get work, have no experience, don't know what they're doing. This is like farm labor, right? This is highly technical work. You just can't prune a tree, or you can't, you know, you can't work picking cherries without damaging, you know, the tree. So they come into this, they come into landscaping with some experience, right? And so, but they want to become entrepreneurs. They want to do their own business, but they feel they don't have the opportunity. So I called Representative Hurd's office this morning and said, yes, I'm going to testify, because I had the information. Right, I don't want to come in this building and say I'm just for this bill just for the sake of supporting it. This is really going to have this is a big deal in our community. This is going to have this is going to give folks the opportunity to come out of the shadows. And you know, these people, like some of the testimonies, yeah, there's a lot of people out there doing this work that don't have a license. Let's give them the opportunity. When you have a test and you have 100% failure by Latinos, there's something wrong with that. So we have to change it. So I think we're here to support this bill because it gives people an opportunity. It removes a barrier, right? I had the opportunity. I got a call from State Senator from Alabama, Hank Sanders. And he told me, I need your people to come in March at the 50th anniversary of the march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama. And I didn't know who he was, and I was kind of a deep Southern voice, and I said, sure, I'll be there. How many people you need? Bring all your people. So we invited a lot of the folks from Causa and from Piccoon, and we went and flew down there to Alabama, and I marched from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, and I seen what institutional racism is all about. And I think every person that wants to change and make equality a norm in our state needs to make that march to see what institutional racism is all about. And I believe this bill corrects a long-standing wrong in our state. So I'm here to support this, and I urge the committee to do the same, and that we need this bill. Let's bring these people, these workers that wanna create their own business. Let's bring them out of the shadows. Let's give them the opportunity to do so. I'm here and proudly say that I want to thank you, Representative Hurt, for your courage, for standing up for us and trying to make a difference for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of this panel? Okay. Great. Thank you very much.